everybody, this is Rustin Rose of Metal Nation, and we are chatting today with Tommy Victor of Prong. How are you doing, brother?
Fantastic, Rustin. Absolutely amazing.
You are currently in the midst of the most prolific period of creative output in the band's 30-year history. What's gotten into you?
I had a lot of things to make up. I had to make amends for the periods where there weren't any Prong records coming out, and I was devoting too much of my time to other projects. So I needed to prove to myself and maybe to the fans that Prong could put out a consistent run of records that were of fairly good quality. So making amends to years of inactivity.
And it hasn't just been throwing product out there. They've been incredible records.
Oh, thanks.
Including the new one, 0 Days, coming out at the end of the month, and then you're off to Europe for another tour, so you got a lot on your plate there.
Yeah, I mean, that's always stressful. I mean, we've been back and forth. I mean, we did a couple already. We did Hellfest in France. It's a huge metal festival. And then Grass Pop is another big one. So now we go back and do more and, club shows. So, yeah, I mean, the tour dates are up on the website and everything. But, yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot of work going on here.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to see you back in May with Testament and Sepultura.
Oh, awesome.
You look absolutely energized. Our photographer said you look like a kid in a candy shop.
You got me on a good day.
So Prong crushed us last year with album number 10, No Absolutes, which you hailed as sort of a modern cleansing revisited. Tell us about 0 Days from your perspective.
I think the vocals have gotten better and better and better, and I think that's indicative on the new record. And I spent a lot more time on the lyrics, and they had to be perfect on this one. So, I mean, that's really where I've been moving with the Prong experience. It seems like that's become like the center piece of my interest is the lyrics and the vocals. Finding the riffs is very difficult. So that is probably the most less enjoyable aspect of making the record because everything's been done already, and it's like these guitar players and kids today are so amazing and outstanding. It's like, how do you compete with that? So it's like finding that is difficult. I think we did a good job. I mean, it's just writing, the pressure to write really good songs is, every record is more of strategic importance here because I think that's where veterans can somehow stand alone because, you know how to write songs. You've done it in the past. I mean, the kids may be able to, destroy you on their instruments these days, but to write a good old rock and roll song, that's something that, that we may be able to do better than them. So, that's what we have to focus on. And I think we did it on this record. It's just, there's no filler, there's no long instrumental periods. It's just one song after the other that just hits you in the face. And that's what we got to do. And it's just getting that done. And I think we've been able to keep doing it.
Well, and you hit on a key thing there. It's like when you and I came up, everything was all about the riff. Rock and roll, metal, punk is all about the riff. And you listen to a lot of these bands these days, and it's like, everything's this bouncy, genty stuff. And it's like, where's the goddamn riff?
I know. I mean, I just did I had to put together an article for my favorite 10 records of all time, the most inspirational records.
Uh-huh.
And then I know it was exactly what you were saying. It was like, what really attracted to me to these records? It was almost, it's that Beavis and Butthead thing. It's where, it's like, yeah, you mean like this, Smoke on the Water and, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and all these classic things that really got us energized to it. So, that's we're hardwired into that. Is from that generation. I don't know what the kids are into today. I mean, I think essentially they're into just impressing one another with their versatility and their guitar calisthenics. That's fine. If that's where it's developed into, I'm just one guy in millions. So I have nothing to judge on it. But we come from an era where it's like where those riffs were important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the vocals too, and I was going to bring that up because it's like with every album you do, you see, and it's here on 0 Days, you seem to stretch yourself a little bit farther, becomes more expansive, and I'm just sort of wondering if that's something that was intentional design or if that's just from the years of experience recording, being on tour, and how that all played out.
I don't know. I mean, it's an intentional thing for sure because I just think it has to get better. I mean, it was like that's why we got Steve Evans to work on Carved into Stone because I really never knew what I was doing. I was just completely on-the-job training, and no one really told me what to do. And even, the producers we had in the past never really instructed me. So I wanted to get a guy that was going to beat me on the head and start, straighten me out vocally. Because I always thought that it was sort of like the weakest part in Prong. So, as time has gone on, I've been working with better guys for vocals, which, Evitts and Collier, these guys have been really helping me out a lot. So I owe a lot to them. It's like, they've helped me out huge amounts on what I'm doing. So I still don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not really, I've learned on the job. I mean, Prong was the first band I started singing in, and I had no idea what really I was doing.
And you alluded to Mr. Collier there again. He worked with you on this record. And what is it that Chris brings to the table that really impacts a Prong album?
What doesn't he do? It's like, he pretty much has his hands on everything. And, he's at this point, he's almost like a band member. I mean, he's just, and I let him go. I mean, he's like a caged animal. And he wants something done. We talk about it, and he feels strongly about something, and I just go along with it, and he knocks me down continually on my ideas. So it's like he almost tips over a lot on the whole thing, and as far as, and I don't even get involved in on this record. Maybe a couple of little decisions on during the mix, but the engineering part of it, he's just completely doing all that. And then, and then contributing in arrangements and songwriting too. So, he's a major part of these records. Yeah, I mean, he's a kick-ass dude. I mean, he really knows what he's doing.
How long does it usually take after you've recorded and released an album before you can go and look back at it objectively?
Ooh, that's a good question. After I finished it, we went right out on the Testament tour. So, I mean, it was supposed to get done a little earlier, and one of my producer credits is really it's scheduling, and it's like I figured, I put some buffer time in there, but I mean, we got down to I was ready to leave, and then we finally finished the record, like the mixes, the mastering, everything was done, and then I packed my bags and left for that tour. It was retarded. So I didn't listen to it during that whole Testament, until they wanted to start thinking about a single or whatever. I was afraid to listen to it. I'm like, you know what, maybe this record sucks, and I'm not going to like it. So I was fearful of listening to it. And then finally, I had to listen to around to it, and then, I was like, we got the job done. I know that I put all the time into it, and I know that we worked our butts off. So that's really what anybody can do in life. Is if you feel like you didn't put enough time into something, then that's where, the doubts come in. But in the end, it'll be all, I couldn't have worked any harder on it. There's no way. And so at least I know that, and, let the chips fall as they may, really.
Yeah, but there's still that immediacy to it because you were out on tour writing riffs.
Yes.
And there's still a freshness to it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, because we've had those experiences in the past where it was, especially in the later Epic records. Cleansing worked out with the demos, and then the looking at the material with the A&R people and all this stuff. But Rude Awakening went crazy. It was everything was second guessed, and it was the mixes, 4 or 5 different mixes per song, and nothing worked out. So here, the questioning, the time for questioning is gone. I mean, doing these records, it's we got to get it done. We're not even going to think about questioning this. And it's we have to roll with it, and that's part of my decisions with the producer, with the band and the material is we don't have time to question this. Let's just keep moving. So that works for. Some people it doesn't work. You got to go in and dial things in, but we didn't have the time on these records to do that.
You alluded to this before, but you always have a lot to say lyrically, but that seems especially so on 0 Days. You're not usually overly political, but there's more of that, it seems to me, on this record. What was weighing heavy on your mind when you wrote for this album?
It stems from, and I'm not going to lie, I don't have any problems being a plagiarist on, for the Doors, and listen to, Roadhouse Blues as, the future's uncertain and the end is always near. So I was like, wow, that's such a great line, and how could I bring that into like a song title, and it's like, well, there's no time left in 0 days, and it's like there's sort of like an emptiness in that. So everything sort of like spawned from that, because I came up with the album title first, then I came up with all the titles of the songs with the knowledge of how those could expand. So it all emerged from that. Sometimes you got to look at it as a pyramid scheme on the way of like constructing the lyrics for the record. So I mean, there's a couple little outlying lyrics, that aren't really part of that theme. I mean, like Rulers of the Collective is sort of like a tongue-in-cheek thing. It's like, all for one, and this it's almost like like an anti-fascist type of or kind of song, and then but it's not really with anything. It's almost like a Whose Fist Is This Anyway, where it's a little on that edge, and then like Forced Into Tolerance is something too, is where it's like people are just it's the old hardcore attitude. I'm not listening to you. You're trying to pummel me with your beliefs, and I can't even open my mouth. So it's a lot of that is in part of the whole 0 days concept a little bit, but and then there's a lot of like dichotomies, like the song "The Whispers," where I almost got that idea from living on the East Coast for so many years and then being on the West Coast, and they're so drastically different in mentality, and it's like this quest for balance. So the whole like pyramidical prongs, all-seeing eye, balance, and this all has to sort of tie in with all the lyrics and living in the now and other kooky spiritual things in there.
One of my personal favorite songs on the album, and this might have something to do with sort of that expansiveness of the vocals we were talking about, is Divide and Conquer. Tell us a little bit about that one.
That was sort of like Chris Collier's baby. Like he came up with the original, like with this riff, and I was like, you know what, that riff is really cool. And then I was like, I have a problem with the chorus, so it was so undeniably hooky that. That I was afraid of that song. So the right lyric had to be in there to make that happen. And that was kind of, that was one of the ones that was keeping me up till like 4 a.m. And it was like, there's not that many lyrics in it, but what is said in that little period had to be of some kind of impact. So, it was important to get that song done. I mean, I'm surprised at the response from it. I mean, I thought that we were going to get blasted for it because, but I had maneuvered it around where I just felt that it was somewhat relative to Killing Joke, and if that happens with a song, then I'm happy. I'm like this 18-year-old kid that everything has to be somewhat in the Killing Joke mentality of some sort. So it's like I had to put it on that against that litmus test of that, and I was like, yeah, it passed the Killing Joke test. So it worked out, and people have been digging it. So that's really about the story. What else I could say about it?
And Killing Joke, your dream job yet to come, right?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's going to happen, but.
All right, so as we mentioned earlier, you seem absolutely revitalized at this point in your career, and on top of Prong, you've released 2 more albums with Danzig in the last couple of years as well. How do you keep balance in your life to maintain creativity without burning out?
Well, just staying sober, and it just somehow it's not easy. Especially recently, there's been a lot of back and forth, and I don't know how. I really don't know how I get it done. A lot of times, it's just when it hits the point where it's impossible to do it, then I don't know if I can do it. If I can do it, I do it. And, people think I'm crazy, but it's like, I guess because of all the years on the road and like all the ups and downs with Prong, like I'm used to like punishment. And it's like, so it's like, that's really basically, I'm just like beaten into this mode of accepting like the difficulties.
I sort of got my entree into Prong with the Beg to Differ album, which is now over a quarter-century old. What are your memories of making that sophomore album?
That was one of those magical records where we didn't rehearse a lot for it. We didn't really work on the songs that much. We didn't know when we were going to start recording the record. It was a bizarre experience where we signed a record deal on a Friday, and I think it was Halloween or something. And then the next day we were in the studio recording. It was like one of these classic stories where it took so long to get the record deal. And A&R's got to go, you're going to record next Saturday, like I got Dotson in, and he's going to start doing it on Saturday. I'm like, we didn't even sign the contract yet. It was like, okay, well, Friday go in and sign the contract, and then, and we were just like, okay, well, you're signing this record contract and going in, and then we didn't even, look, I'm telling you right now, I didn't even have any gear. That's how retarded it was. And I had been borrowing like a guitar cabinet from somebody, and like I had like this. I didn't even have any equipment. That was how ridiculous it was. And Ted, we went out and we signed a contract. Went and cashed a check, bought like a drum kit and a guitar amp, and like went in and did the record, and just drank a whole shitload of beer and did it in like 3 weeks. So that was really the story of it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it was like ridiculous. Yeah.
Awesome, Tommy. Thanks so much for taking some time to chat with us about the new album, 0 Days. We look forward to catching you on the road. Have a wonderful and safe tour.
Thank you, buddy.